race. We're just about ready for the start. And last year, things were going very, very well, and suddenly everything was on time, and we were all set for a race. And then suddenly, disaster struck right off the top. Let's look at it again.
Well, of course, the weather was nice. It was beautiful sunshine. Nelson Piquet and Alan Jones came down into the first corner side by side. The rest of the field filing in behind them. And then what happened? The two of them touched. Cars went right, left, and centre. Nelson Piquet himself went in and hit the wall. The Fittipaldi did the same. Mario Andretti very much involved. It was a real melee. And as we see this now, it's certainly no sunny day. And as we also hear from outside, the racing engines have been fired up. And these cars are going to do one lap around this racetrack. They're then going to come to the starting position where they are now rested. And after they have all come to rest, a red light will go on to advise everyone that they are under starter's orders. And when that light goes on, they know that the start is imminent, and therefore they will have to be very gentle with their revs and try to accelerate away with the minimum amount of wheel spin, but at the same time the maximum amount of speed. So now we're about, after a very long wait, to see this pace lap begin. The green flag is being shown to those drivers. This, of course, is not the start of the race. This is merely the pace lap. And there they go. Nelson Piquet leading his way around there. Carlos Reutemann behind him. Alan Jones behind him. Nigel Mansell tucked in a dark car, the Black Lotus, as they all lead their way around here, finding their way again. Many of the cars behind there, quite frankly, seeing nothing at all. I fear that we're going to see the odd incident in this race.
Jackie, of course, the view you're seeing as the cars going around. Here on pit row, you're seeing the grid completely cleared. All the machinery, all the starting machinery and so on that gets the cars going now has been cleared off. When the cars return to the area in front of us at pit row, they will have a clear track in front of them, and they will come to a stop, and there will be that very brief waiting period under starter orders, and then away they go.
Yes, a very tense moment. I don't think there's another sport in the world that has the tension of the starting grid that one sees in the world of motorsport. I suppose partly because of the element of danger, partly because of the tension, the nerves, the adrenaline that is pumping for all of the same reasons. There you see the World Championship point standing. Carlos Reutemann there at 49, Nelson Piquet behind him. Then Alan Jones, the reigning world champion. Alain Prost still with a chance of doing it. Jacques Lafitte with 34 points. And then down to John Watson, 21 points, sharing the 21 points with Gilles Villeneuve. And there you see the back end of that World Championship standings. The man at the bottom of that, Patrick Tambay, came in only halfway through the season because of an accident that happened 1 year ago here, where Jean-Pierre Jabouille had quite a serious accident, was trapped in the car for a very long time, took a long time to recover, started the season, but found that his legs were frankly not able to sustain the distance, the pain, and the exertion required to drive a Grand Prix car. He stood down, and Patrick Tambay, who used to be a member of the ski team of France, took over his position in the Ligier team.
Well, Tambay replacing Jabouille, who is here, by the way, and is working down with his brother-in-law, is it, Jacques Lafitte, and is very useful to the team in a non-competitive way.
Well, he's very good technically. He's always been a great test driver. He's got great knowledge and experience, and well should that be used. You can't give away that kind of knowledge, and certainly the Ligier team recognized it, have snatched him up, and he is, of course, helping everybody concerned, particularly Jacques Lafitte, who he has a unique relationship with. The cars are now rolling up out of the slowest part of the racetrack. Cars, of course, still coming round that hairpin. The rain, as I look out, has stopped. There is no rain right now. These are not complete rows of the grid, by the way. It's staggered grid, and therefore you can't say it's the first or second or third row. These cars are staggered all the way through. And, of course, they'll now wait and get under starters' orders. We said that there was a possibility Gilles Villeneuve may not be in the race, but he is very much in the race, so is Didi Pironi. On the right-hand side of your screen, Ron, we see the light system, that in the right corner of the screen. And there's Gilles Villeneuve, the pride of Canada. And there we wait for everybody to get into line. We look out of our commentary position. The cars are still rolling at the back end of the grid. The front end, of course, firmly stopped. They're coming to a stop now. The red light is still not on. You will see it when it does come on.
There it is then. We just wait, and then it'll be just a very brief wait between 4 seconds and about 7. The red light is on. They're under starter's orders, and in just a few moments. There it is. They're underway.
And Alan Jones looks on. Carlos Reutemann has sped away easily. Alan Jones on the inside going into that first corner. He's going to be able to do it, is he? No, Carlos Reutemann, and Alan Jones is behind him. Carlos Reutemann is almost being passed by Alan Jones, who has the right line. Nelson Piquet dropped back there. All of the cars seem to have got through. And it's Alan Jones in the lead. And Nelson Piquet has passed Carlos Reutemann. Quite a sensational start, and there's been an accident. One of the Renaults is straight off. It's René Arnoux has been bumped into the barrier. René will be okay, but the front suspension of that car severely damaged, certainly not able to go on.
So René Arnoux is out of the race very, very quickly. Arnoux, who's not had a lot of good luck in this year. His best finish was a second in Austria, but he is out of the 20th edition of the Grand Prix of Canada. 70-lap race over a distance of 191.8 miles. And let's watch the action there as now we watch the trailing ambulances come up from the back of the grid. That looked like one of the Ferraris, Jackie.
And yes, that was a Ferrari well back there. It looked like Nigel Mansell. And we see a replay of this first hairpin accident here. You can see there's coming together there. René Arnoux was certainly, it looked like Didier Pironi spun out there. Gilles Villeneuve was involved also. And there the car was without any directional stability at all. Slams into the barrier. Undoubtedly bends the suspension way beyond the possibility of continuing. So it's the end of the day for him. But in the meantime, Alan Jones has taken a very useful lead from Nelson Piquet. Following him seems to be, I think, Carlos Reutemann, and slowly behind him, I think, may be one of the Renaults, Alain Prost, and then behind him, Nigel Mansell. But Alan Jones, the man who seems to be the man who should be taking more care and not really exciting himself, looking forward to retirement, has taken the initiative. He knows he has to win this Labatt Grand Prix of Canada if he has a chance at the World Championship, and that he is attempting to do. The car sliding wildly. Nelson Piquet more in control, you would think, as he came round there. Then the Renault, it seems to be of Alain Prost, who's behind him. As they come weaving up, Alain Prost is in third position here. Then comes De Angelis. Then after him, Reutemann. Then Jacques Lafitte. Then Mansell, then Tambay, then John Watson, then Gilles Villeneuve coming at great speed behind that. The Cesaris in the McLaren, and in the two Alfa Romeos of Giacomelli and Mario Andretti. Quite a first lap.
Pironi still in the race, by the way. He is well back, almost second last right now, involved in that little shunt that we had with Arnoux down in the back end of the circuit, down in the S's chicane, down at the far end from the pit area. But we're watching now as in front is Alan Jones, the reigning world champion, who's off to a good start, got an excellent start in this race. Right behind him, Nelson Piquet, the number one qualifier. And they are 1-2 now, and Alan Jones certainly handling the wet conditions very, very well at this time. It's interesting to, as Jackie has touched on, watch the lines that some of these cars are taking through the turns, through the tracks of some of the other cars. As a matter of fact, it's not raining right at the moment here at Île Notre-Dame, and this track is conditions are going to change as we go, as it dries with the motion of the tires.
The more that it dries, the better the advantage that Carlos Reutemann, and there is Patrick Tambay, spun off there, kept his engine running. Now starting to get back onto the racetrack, accelerating away. He was well placed, Patrick Tambay. He had come through the field very well in these difficult conditions. So Patrick Tambay certainly having a little problem, but still back in the race as we join our leader, Alan Jones, in what I would recommend to be the intermediate tyres. The track will certainly dry out. If there is no more rain, it will be to his advantage. But Nelson Piquet at the moment has the most suitable tyres for the race, although he seems to be dropping back just a little bit. Now the slowest part of the racetrack, and it seems to me that the Renault, the yellow and white car there of Alain Prost, is catching a little bit, and there De Angelis in the black car, closely followed by Jacques Lafitte. So there we have them going through there.
Interesting to note again the performance under these conditions of that yellow Renault, Jackie. It is right there with the leaders. And this is a driver's kind of a race. Power is not that important in this one. It's the handling of the car in rain conditions. And again, we see the development of the Renaults, how well they have come along. And as here the leader right now coming through is Alan Jones, followed by Piquet. Right behind him, there's the Renault of Alain Prost. Prost has done very well, and so have Renault. We mentioned it before the broadcast, or at least before the race started, that the Renault had been doing very well, especially Prost, who in the last 6 races has had the pole 2 times, been second on the grid twice, and won 3 times. So this car has developed into perhaps the best car in the World Championship circuit, at least over the last part of the season.
Well, Alan Prost certainly driving with a maturity that we couldn't really have expected had we been looking at this in a broader sense. So therefore, that young man driving that car, although it is very heavily financed by the French government, it's a nationally owned company, Renault. They spend probably in the region of $20 million a year in their racing project. Therefore, they really do race to win. Alan Prost, they have chosen as one of their drivers, and that, of course, is very important. You see there the standings in the first 6 positions of this Labatt Grand Prix of Canada. Alan Jones is leading. Nelson Piquet second, Alan Prost is third, De Angelis fourth, Lafitte is fifth, and Nigel Mansell is sixth, driving for the Colin Chapman team also, as is De Angelis.
Prost, a 26-year-old who raced with McLaren last year. He's released from his contract with McLaren so he could join the Renault team after Jabouille left the Renault team to go over to the Ligier Talbot team. And as we see him come through here, it's interesting and almost natural for him to go to Renault. His first real drive was in the Formula Renault Series, which is a development series in France, which has been partly responsible for the resurgence of the French driver on the world circuits this year. His first contract in 1979 was with Renault in Formula 3. So we're watching Alain Prost, car number 15. The only Renault left in the race after the accident involving René Arnoux on the first lap. We're now on the 3rd lap here of a 70-lap race.
Well, it seems
there you
to
see
me
the first 3 cars down at the far end of the circuit. In the S is at the end of the circuit. Look at the crowd here. They've stayed through the rain to watch this race.
Well, they've stayed through the rain, but they're getting one big show, because one of the cars that's certainly streaking through the field at this time is Gilles Villeneuve, who's really improving his position lap after lap. The man who's losing his position lap after lap is the man leading in the World Championship. But on my count, as he passed, our commentary position was Carlos Reutemann. He's dropping back, but Gilles Villeneuve now trying to pick off car after car. Now let's just look at him for a little moment here. Gilles Villeneuve looking for a way round here. Remember, in that sort of spray, he sees little ahead of him, waiting for another driver to make perhaps a slight error of judgment. That there, in fact, is the Ferrari of Pironi as he passes Carlos Reutemann. As I say, Reutemann's way back in the field. That's Rybacki, that's Pironi there, that's Carlos Reutemann behind him. That car number 28 is the teammate of Gilles Villeneuve. Gilles Villeneuve, in fact, himself is probably up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th position right now, which is indeed very impressive, because he started, of course, in 11th position. He had dropped back considerably, not getting good visibility, but he certainly regained that lost ground, and he certainly make waves. We're back to our leaders. Alan Jones still holding the advantage that he had before. Threatening Nelson Piquet is Alain Prost. Then the Lotus of De Angelis closely forward with a light blue car there. And there's your man. There's Gilles Villeneuve, who's climbing up there.
Villeneuve, of course, has never done badly in this race, no matter what the car has been. As a matter of fact, for this car, perhaps this is the best conditions he could possibly have. First of all, for him as a driver, and secondly, the car itself has been giving a lot of handling problems, especially at high speed. But Villeneuve handling this very well. His first race, of course, the very first win. He has added to that a second place in a tremendous dice with Alan Jones just 2 years ago. Last year, with a car that was terrible, really, he wound up in 5th place. So he's never failed to pick up a point here at this race.
Right now he's picking up a point because he's taken over 6th position as he passed the Lotus of Mansell. And that's a pretty remarkable effort, because there is a slight problem with the turbo lag. He's certainly driving it hard, and of course the type of thing that you expect. Our leaderboard is a little bit behind there because that's 1 lap ago, but I can tell you that Gilles Villeneuve is now on the leaderboard and is in fact in 6th position. Carlos Reutemann has gone right down to 17th position. The man leading the World Championship, I'm afraid, is not going to be a happy man today. It now remains to be seen what happens to the rest of the top runners. And the front spoiler looks a little bit out of line of Gilles Villeneuve. It could be that when they all came together in that very first corner contretemps, although it wasn't the first corner. It was nearly the first corner, and certainly it seems that it's been put slightly out of line, but of course in the rain it doesn't have quite so much importance.
On the 5th lap, Alan Jones leading, followed by Nelson Piquet, then car number 15, Alain Prost, and then it is Elio De Angelis in 4th spot. As we watch Gilles Villeneuve, we'll take a break and return to CTV's live coverage of the Le Mans Grand Prix of Canada in just a moment.
But if I made everything that wasn't good.
Racing on lap number 6 right now, there is Alan Jones, who is now on lap 7. He just passed our commentary position and going through that very fast, flat-out area down below the lake. And Alan Jones here on the Île Notre-Dame has the lead, but there you see the three of them, and it's closing up a bit. Second, there is the car of Nelson Piquet, the Brabham, and following him, just that little bit larger gap, and Alain Prost in the Renault.
But most threatening of all is the car behind that. The car, and look, we're going to have a lead change. Nelson Piquet with a real wet weather tires has gone in and has been able to overtake Alan Jones. The reason for this is that he has the wetter tires on, the very deep treaded tires, and so also has Prost. He has managed to pass him as well. So therefore, there's Prost trying to take him on the outside. Alain Prost going round the outside, almost side by side as they go round here, and Alain Prost takes the lead of the Le Mans Grand Prix of Canada. Jacques Lafitte also takes the Alan Jones car, so now we have a complete change. Alain Prost, Nelson Piquet, Jacques Lafitte, and then Alan Jones. A whole new look to the World Championship standings here. And Alan Jones seems to be almost missing, and Gilles Villeneuve is now coming up. Gilles Villeneuve is now going to pass Alan Jones. You're going to see something remarkable. There is Alboreto driving the Tyrrell car, who spun or stopped in one of the fastest parts of the racetrack. Jacques Lafitte walks away. No, Patrick Tambay walks away from his car. He also was doing well. He had spun out earlier. The yellow flag has been shown. There you see the car of Jacques Lafitte there, closing up on the car of Nelson Piquet. But here we have our new leader, Alain Prost, driving the Renault, the turbocharged Renault, driving around this racetrack in a very strong way indeed.
So much can happen in a race like this, and so much happened in just 3 turns. We saw a complete change in the leadership. So what we've got now is probably, we can just guess here. There's Villeneuve. Look at him.
And Villeneuve is going to challenge for 3rd position right now. Oh my goodness, Gilles Villeneuve is going to take 3rd position in front of a standing ovation from the crowd. We look out from our commentary position, and Piquet tries to close the door on him, but there's no way. Gilles Villeneuve heads into this very fast corner with leaving literally no visibility to Nelson Piquet as he storms away in his Ferrari. What a performance. The yellow flag now being shown again for the car of Alboreto that stopped along the side of the racetrack. Potentially dangerous and with bad visibility, but there's a hero of today, coming from 11th position into 3rd position in literally no time at all. I have to speculate that it's something to do with tyres, but there you see the man who is threatening also, and he could easily come up and win this race, Jacques Lafitte in the blue car. So
Jackie, just taking a look at the Villeneuve performance, as you mentioned, on the first lap, he started on the grid in 11th spot. On the second lap, he was in 10th spot. He moved up by the 4th lap to 7th place, to 6th on the next lap, and now 5th, and then up into 3rd here on the 8th lap. So just a tremendous climb through. We mentioned before the race that he's a tremendous rain driver, and look what he has done.
The man who I think is going to win this race, in fact, is Jacques Lafitte. The blue and white car that you can see 3rd in your picture right now. I think he's going to win it. Right now he's stalking Alain Prost. Jacques Lafitte, who has to win this to in fact keep in the World Championship standings, and if everybody else falls off, he could still certainly attempt to do that at Las Vegas. That'll be the last round in the World Championship. We see the number of laps to go here, and right now as we look at it, it says 62 laps to go, but in fact because of the rain conditions, the race will only run for 2 hours. And that will be the maximum. It doesn't matter how many laps they've done, Ron, it will only run for 2 hours. But right now you're going to see a real cat and mouse job, because Jacques Lafitte is going to have to look for a place to pass Alain Prost. He's coming out of the slipstream and the murk there to have a little look at him. tucking in again. Gilles Villeneuve is a real threat also. He could come through and also challenge the car, the Renault car of Alain Prost. One of the slower cars, it looks like Alboreto there, who got restarted, going down past the pits here, and look at how difficult that visibility is for Prost. They're now going through this very fast and bumpy first set of corners here. Alain Prost having to be careful to be sure that he can see clearly, or at least see something of the road. And look, Jacques Lafitte has come out of his slipstream and he's going in under braking. Jacques Lafitte doesn't make it. Fermez la porte in French. The door is closed by Alain Prost.
Something to watch. You can really see what the braking is like by watching that tail light on the cars. You can see where the brakes are being applied, and it, as you see coming through that turn, it was just not enough. But that is where you can do your passing here, is under braking. It's mainly your passing areas are through that.
Well, of course, look where Villeneuve's got now. Villeneuve has got right up behind Jacques Lafitte because of that little... And look, he tries to take him on the outside of the corner. He's looking for space. Lafitte probably is not fully aware that he's there, but if he was, he's not actually handing the race to him. Alain Prost gets past Alboreto. The Ferrari coming along also. Into the pits below us right now, the teammate of Nelson Piquet is Rabaki coming in for a pit stop, and we've got John Watson or Mario Andretti has spun off there into the escape road in one of the Marlboro cars. But here we see this tremendous battle for the lead, and there Lafitte gets through. Alboreto's not let him through, and Lafitte had to go right over the curb. He raises his hand in anger. Alboreto, frankly, doesn't see him because of the mist and because of the rain, and frankly, he's a busy boy right now. But that certainly cost an amazing amount of space. Now watch this. The Ferrari could easily pass Lafitte before they get to the next set of corners.
Gilles Villeneuve, you talk so much about Lafitte, but think of the distance that Villeneuve has come since the start of this race to close up and challenge, in effect, for not only second place, but the lead, because obviously Lafitte is also challenging for the lead against Alain Prost. Villeneuve, the second car, the red car, number 27 in your picture, as we look at Lafitte's car, and there's the other Arrows car, car number 29, driven by Riccardo Patrese. He is finished. He is going to climb out of the car, and that's the day. Of course, he is now the teammate of Jacques Villeneuve. Villeneuve who failed to qualify.
Well, there that gap is opened up there, and Alain Prost got a little bit of a breather for a moment. Then comes the blue and white car of Jacques Lafitte. He's pulled away right now from Gilles Villeneuve because he's had a clear road. Frankly, I think Jacques Lafitte is going to be the fastest car on this racetrack, and I think what's going to happen is the fastest lap so far has been put up at a speed of 85.016 miles an hour by Gilles Villeneuve in his attempt to catch the car of Lafitte. But look at the gap Lafitte has now opened up on him now, and Lafitte is now again in a challenging position to challenge Alain Prost in the Renault. You're going to see a pass here. Now, this is all tactics. It's got to be made with the minimum amount of effort. We have to speculate that Lafitte has already been over a curb, could easily have damaged the pods, the skirts underneath this car. So that's obviously a worry to him slightly. But look how close he is to Prost. The conditions have dried out again as far as the rain is concerned. It's not actually raining as it was earlier. But still, it's a question of if he can get past Prost. Prost's car certainly has more power, but it's a question of if he can transmit that power to the road surface.
Well, we're watching there, and very, very close right now. We could have a pass any second right now, so let's watch these two as we have Renault and, of course, Lafitte nose to tail here at Île Notre-Dame.
And they are coming down to a part of the racetrack which, quite frankly, is well suited for a pass. Now, just pay attention here, because I think you're going to see a little bit of excitement. From this corner here to the next corner is where the possibility is for Jacques Lafitte to take an effort. Remember, he's experienced, he's mature. He's not going to take an unnecessary risk this close to the start of the race. But watch this. He's going to try and duck inside, but he can't on this occasion, because the car on the right-hand side there, badly damaged with the wing falling off. That is the Patrese car. And Villeneuve has closed back up again because of the pace of the car belonging to Prost has slowed down slightly as the car of the young Italian driver, the car number 29, Patrese, comes into the pits.
Well, there we see Patrese.
And Alan Jones. Alan Jones is off the racetrack. This more or less means, quite frankly, that Alan's World Championship hopes have been doused. The yellow flag is out. He's being push-started, which, frankly, is against the regulations. That is a little bit of a no-no, and no doubt will be observed. And we're back now to this enormous battle for the lead in the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada.
Well, there you see it then, and we're going to take a break here as we'll return to CTV's live coverage of the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada in just a moment.
Preacher, you got a problem.
Well, get off your knees and get on with it, Pilgrim. Wedding starts at 1.
Patience, preacher. We'll get you to the church on time.
Take a miracle.
Why, this is a real professional piece of work.
Uh-huh.
Preacher, don't you always take your trouble?
Only when you're buying.
Come to the taste of light, Labatt Light, to playing hard and drinking easy.
There's more to an economy car than a low sticker price and good gas mileage. The 1982 AMC Spirit has both, sure. But what makes Spirit a true economy car is the way it's built. 100% galvanized steel inside all exterior body panels. Z-Bart factory rust protection. And Spirit comes with the American Motors Buyer Protection Plan and a 5-year no rust-through warranty. The AMC Spirit, a true economy car because it's built to last.
There you see Gilles Villeneuve chasing the number 1 and number 2 car, Alain Prost and Jacques Lafitte, and Prost has managed to hang on in first place, doing a great job just staying ahead of Lafitte.
There's another dimension coming up here. John Watson from Northern Ireland has taken over 4th position in the McLaren Ford, and he's catching the others up very rapidly indeed. In fact, he's just about, I would say, 300 yards there. And there you see him coming into the picture in the top part of our picture. But in fact, now it's a question of Jacques Lafitte, in my opinion, finding a way past Alain Prost. It's just a question of time. I fully anticipate how he's going to do it. They're now lapping Alan Jones, by the way, which must be a great disappointment to the reigning world champion on the almost eve of his retirement, in the sense that he's only got 1 Grand Prix left to run, the one of Las Vegas, and by the fact that he cannot now win this Grand Prix, he is not going to go out as a world champion.
Well, we're on lap number 12 of what is scheduled for 70, but will probably be something in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 under the circumstances. Of course, it's either the 200-mile distance or the 2 hours. And now we see them coming down through the area directly in front of us now, and again, it remains the same, the 3 of them. It is, of course, Prost in front, Lafitte second, and Villeneuve now falling back a little bit.
Well, Alain Prost, I must give him a lot of compliments here because, and look, here we're looking for an opening now. Jacques Lafitte can't find it there. Too short a distance between the 2 corners. But Prost has not made any errors at all. Had he made the slightest error, and here's Lafitte again looking for a place to go. He's going to do it. He's done it. Jacques Lafitte takes the lead of the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada. He looks in his mirror almost nonchalantly there as he heads for the slow far end of the racetrack, and pulling off the racetrack now looks one of the, it's Giacomelli. It looks like Mario Andretti or Giacomelli. Mario Andretti it is. Car number 22, the Alfa Romeo, the tractor Alfa Romeo, as it would almost be right now in agricultural terms, as he tries to get his way through very deep water and mud. But there's your new leader, and look at the advantage the young man has taken almost immediately. Now, it's a question of Gilles Villeneuve finding a way past Alain Prost.
Well, it was tough enough for Lafitte, even with that power that is obvious and the ability to get around quicker than anybody. He still had all that time to get around Prost, and now it'll be Villeneuve's job to do the same thing.
It may not take Gilles quite as long, because I think Lafitte is perhaps a little bit more prudent in his overtaking habits than Jacques might be. Jacques has not quite so much to lose. Jacques Lafitte has a lot to lose, excuse me, because this could mean technically the World Championship for him. So therefore, it's something extra for him. Gilles has to make a big effort. That's the main thing.
Is that Watson right behind Gilles? I think it might be.
It is.
John Watson directly behind Gilles Villeneuve. As there's Watson in the Marlboro McLaren. And right now we are on lap number 13. We cannot of course, tell you how many laps left in the race simply because we don't know. It will depend on a time situation, a 2-hour situation, rather than the total laps. It's scheduled for 70.
And there's John Watson from Northern Ireland. And there is almost an attempt to pass. We nearly caught him there. Our camera work, our directors and producers working overtime to try and keep the pace of this race and keep us informed with picture, not only with commentary of the type of actions. You see the cars going through these very deep puddles when you see the rise of the spray there. And Gilles Villeneuve just looking for a gap to get through. Believe me, he's going to pass Mr. Prost just in a lap or two's time. The longer that he takes to pass him, the better that it is for John Watson, by the way, because he is being able to close up that gap, because when two cars are running as close as these two are together, they don't go quite as quickly as they would be on their own. That, I think, is self-evident by the advantage that Jacques Lafitte has already taken. In there you see the difference, because we've kept our camera position to show you where these second and third runners are getting to in respect of comparison of distance on the racetrack to the leader Jacques Lafitte.
Very eventful race so far, as we've seen the lead change hands. Alan Jones now at the back of the pack. Actually, he is not at the back now, as Alvaredo has fallen behind him. But Alan Jones second last, and Carlos Reutemann, by the way, is fourth last right now. So the two fellas, one contending, of course, for a world champion, the other defending world champion, both in the Tag Williams team, not doing very well in this race. Perhaps the rain conditions making the difference. And there you see again the three of them, that second, third, and fourth coming through, Prost, Villeneuve, and Watson.
And Gilles must have made a little error there, because he lost a little bit of ground on Alain Prost on this last, probably this last few corners before they come round to pass our commentary position and the start-finishing line that you see them cross now. John Watson is not making up a lot of ground on Gilles Villeneuve, but still Gilles very much in the picture, driving car number 27, a proud Canadian, man who's flown the flag for Canada very proudly around the world, and all of you Canadians watching here should surely be very pleased indeed at the ambassadorial role that Gilles Villeneuve plays for you in a very proud fashion. He is well recognized to be a Canadian wherever he goes.
Quickly looking at the standings, and this is after 13 laps, Lafitte and Prost, 1-2. They are both from France. The Canadian Gilles Villeneuve in third place, followed by Watson from Great Britain, the Irishman, Piquet from Brazil, then Pironi from France. Then it is De Angelis of Italy, Patrick Daly of Ireland, and then Mansell in ninth spot, and completing the top 10 is De Cesaris, also from Italy. So that's the standings right now as we continue to watch this little battle going on for second place. And there's Villeneuve now starting to make a move.
And he's going to do it. He's going to do it. No, he's not. That was a slightly precarious place to be doing it, if I may say. That could easily have ended in a little contretemps that might have taken both of them out. They're certainly close together, but he's certainly going to look for him now. He's doing it with some confidence as he goes out of sight there, and he's done it. He's done it in that little blind spot there because of the beautiful foliage of the Île Notre-Dame. We weren't able to show you the actual pass, but the end result is the same, and we can expect to hear a big new cheer from the crowd as their hero has now taken over second position in this Labatt race. Alain Prost has had to give in to third position, and he now is in threat with John Watson.
As we look from our helicopter view coming down on that grandstand, which you're going to see as Villeneuve comes through, that grandstand right there is all standing right now for Gilles Villeneuve, who is in second place in this 20th running of the Grand Prix of Canada.
Well, Alain Prost under pressure once again, now from John Watson. It's 8.5 seconds between Gilles Villeneuve and our leader, who of course is another French gentleman, as there are so many Frenchmen in this race, by the name of Jacques Lafitte, leading it in a blue and white car of France. Second, Gilles Villeneuve from Canada. Third, now there is Alain Prost being given a hard time by Northern Ireland driver John Watson.
Gilles Villeneuve currently in second place behind Jacques Lafitte. We'll return to CTV's live coverage of the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada in just a moment.
You gotta keep on changing, gotta move you. Ba-da, 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 ba-da.
been narrowed down to 6 seconds now, is coming into the pits is Hector Rabac, the other Brabham Ford driver to Nelson Piquet. Piquet currently is sitting in fifth spot in the standings. We should mention that Villeneuve is closing the gap now on Jacques Lafitte. Villeneuve doing a great job in the rain here. And as we see the best lap, the fastest lap, 155.871. That's 85 miles an hour in this downpour. So Gilles Villeneuve has really put the pressure on and is now trying to narrow things on Jacques Lafitte. Now, is Lafitte going at top speed, or is he just trying to be a little conservative? He knows how far behind he is simply because he's being told from his pits.
Well, he knows, of course, the gap, and we might just see what this gap is in respect to the racetrack. There you see Gilles Villeneuve coming into picture here, and of course the other car has accelerated out of this hairpin, so on certain occasions he might be able to see the car of Jacques Lafitte. Jacques Lafitte will be driving to pace here. When you're driving in the rain, you're not absolutely driving at 10/10 or completely on the limit, because if you do that, there's always the risk of flying off the road because of the conditions, particularly nowadays with such little suspension on the cars. But at the same time, he's not backing off very much. There's a 9-second difference now between these two cars. It is now raining again. The conditions constantly changing here. The conditions of the racetrack consistently slippery, I can tell you. And we'll see this interval. So there the leader has gone. There you see Gilles Villeneuve and the bright red Ferrari entering the same corner. And there is the interval that we just saw, which is about, it's a little more than 8.5 seconds, but this will change at different parts of the racetrack where one car will be a little faster than the other. One car is suited to one part of the racetrack, and then he will again be able to make up that gap. And unofficially, we are looking at our stopwatches here, Ron and I, and as visual as we can be, it looks like he's opened up considerably to about a 10-second lead. You see, if he goes out one corner, and the rear end slides out just a little bit, and he doesn't get real good traction on, suddenly 1 or 2 seconds can disappear in the rain, whereas on the dry that simply wouldn't be the case. We'd be talking of hundreds or thousands of seconds over a period of only 1 or 2 corners.
Been an up and down year for Jacques Lafitte this year. He qualified 10th in this race and has the lead. His best finish, of course, was the win at Spain. His best qualifying was at Spain, where he qualified for the pole, but his best finish was in Austria. He's been second in Belgium and Spain, but he's retired. His car has not held together in the last 2 races, and he's retired 5 times in 13 races so far this year. So it's been kind of a year where he's done well when he's kept the car together. And this, of course, will be the question right now. And a lot of fans, of course, are looking at Lafitte and wondering, and I'm sure he is in the cockpit too, can I hold it together?
Well, there's generally less strain on the car and on the driver physically on a wet weather race because, of course, the suspension, the transmission and the engine are not being put through the same sort of torture. You can't rev the engine quite so high, and, of course, the suspension is not getting the same G energy onto it. The transmission is not being loaded quite so heavily as it would be in a dry track. But Lafitte, by the way, has just opened this gap up to more than 11 seconds. So, therefore, he is being informed by his pit of the, and there you see it, he immediately retaliated by putting up the fastest lap time, only still a little more than 85.5 miles per hour average per lap. But believe me, when you're out there averaging over 85, when sometimes you're going round corners at below 30 miles an hour in extremely slippery conditions, you are honking.
Well, Villeneuve qualified on the 6th row, and Lafitte qualified on the 5th row. So the two of them have done well against the conditions and against, of course, opposition that was much faster during the weekend qualifying. Of course, Villeneuve is, it seems to be holding between 10 and 12 seconds between Villeneuve and Lafitte as we watch Lafitte come through.
Just a little update. Carlos Reutemann is back in 15th position. Alan Jones is back in 17th position. So the those two contenders, at least in the World Championship, they're both 1 lap behind the leaders, and therefore well out of the point standings, well out of collecting any points towards their World Championship quest. And therefore it's a whole new ball game when it gets to Las Vegas. The only man right now who is still in the points of any significance is Nelson Piquet, who at the moment, if he stays in 5th position, will collect 2 points, which will still allow Carlos Reutemann, under the present conditions, to have a 1-point lead going into the last race of the season. But of course, the race is not yet over.
Jackie, we should mention here that this was scheduled to be a 70-lap race, but the rules are 200 miles or 2 hours, and it took, through the first 15 laps, 30.5 minutes. So we would judge that this race will end about the 60th lap at the 2-hour mark if it took a quarter of the time through the first 30 seconds. So it's nearly 15 seconds now, 30 minutes rather, through the first 15 laps. It's nearly a 15-second differential now between the leader, you see him right there, Jacques Lafitte, and Gilles Villeneuve. So Lafitte certainly the best car on the circuit right now.
The combination of car, driver, tires, and suspension, as well as, of course, the engine, the whole package now certainly belongs to Jacques Lafitte. Of course, it does remain that motor car remains in good working order for the rest of this race, and that Jacques Lafitte himself does not make any error of judgment. Just going out of line by a few inches almost could call an end to his race, because all it requires is for him to hit one of those curves, and it could send him spinning into the ground. Oh, and there Nelson Piquet, by the way, who's back in 5th position. Nelson Piquet driving the Brabham, a man that was expected to do a little better in the rain. Perhaps it could be, in his particular case, that his tyres and so forth are not just as suitable for this race as they might have been. He obviously has to do as well as possible because of the point situation in the World Championship. As I say, if he finishes in 5th position, he will collect 2 points, which will allow him to close the gap on Carlos Reutemann. He will give him 48 points in the World Championship against Carlos Reutemann's 49 going into the final race, and that, if there ever was a climax, is 1. So therefore, Piquet is going to be very conscious of who is behind him, and hopefully, perhaps one of the cars ahead of him might drop out through mechanical problems. He can't expect to improve his position through any driving talent, so therefore it's a question now of keeping everything together and making no mistakes. There are only 20 laps have been completed around this Île Notre-Dame of this Labatt Grand Prix of Canada. We're watching Nelson Piquet, who went in there oh, and somebody's gone straight on again. It looks like one of the Alphas. It could be Giacomelli. It could also be John Watson. We were just in a position not to be able to read the number on the car. He didn't give us a lot of help with mud and water flying there. But I suppose he might think that we are relatively comfortable in our commentary position and should not worry about that too much.
There you see, of course, Piquet. 20 laps completed is about a third of the race now. So we've gone a third of the way. Lafitte certainly is the fastest car. About 15 seconds back is Villeneuve, and he has been opening it up. He's over 10 seconds ahead of Watson, who is in 3rd place. Prost is another 7 seconds back in 4th place. Pironi 4 seconds after that in 5th place. Nelson Piquet of Brazil in 6th spot. And there's Pironi, who is doing extraordinarily well in 5th spot. So the Ferrari is doing quite well.
Well, not only that, but he's catching Alain Prost. That's the man, Alain Prost, who now he's got in his sign set there. So it could be that, in fact, what's happened to Nelson Piquet, he's dropped back to 6th position and has lost a point in the World Championship. So Pironi, who was involved in that first lap incident with René Arnoux and did spin off, has caught up all of that ground, has got himself onto the leaderboard, is now into 5th place. Looks like he's going to pass Alain Prost for 4th place and could easily get John Watson.
Well, we look at our leader right now, and that is Jacques Lafitte in car number 26, the Ligier Talbot. We'll return to CTV's live coverage of the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada in just a moment.
We hear a lot of yakking about car stereos these days. Everybody's cutting prices and probably cutting corners too. At the Car Stereo Center, we say, cut the... The Car Stereo Center gives you the quality you want at a price you can handle. The Car Stereo Center will undercut any quoted price on a major brand car stereo. Plus, you get immediate professional installation. So if you can't hack the yakking, cut the... Come to the Car Stereo Center on Jean Talon, just west of Côte de Neige.
There's really no such thing as bad.
Permashine, a brilliant idea for your car.
You're looking at the leader up in front in the picture there. That is Jacques Lafitte. Was that Jones he just overtook?
He lapped Alan Jones, the reigning world champion, for the 2nd time. That's a proud moment for Jacques Lafitte, and rather a humbling moment, and I must say, surely frustrating moment for Alan Jones. But the story here now is that Watson, who's in third position, is 7 seconds behind Gilles Villeneuve. Didi Pironi, the other Ferrari driver, teammate to Gilles Villeneuve, is closing up on
Pironi
Alain
has now
Prost.
taken Alain Prost.
And he's just taken him, so now Didi Pironi is now in third position. Alain Prost is fourth. Fifth is John Watson's down there. It's a reshuffle, and so therefore we're going to have to set the leadership. Oh, and there is Mansell going straight on at one of the chicanes, driving across the grass there with great ease, getting back onto the racetrack. And there is Didi Pironi, driving the bright red number 28 Ferrari, who, of course, as you may remember, on the first lap incident with René Arnoux, spun off and had a little problem, lost an amazing amount of ground, and has shown great verve and determination by catching up and now being very much in the leaderboard.
Tires have to come into the situation, Jackie. First of all, we were into a situation where they were scrambling for tires earlier in the year, but Goodyear has got back in after the settlement of the war between the governing bodies of this sport. But right now we look at the top 5 positions on the circuit, and it looks like Michelin has kind of got control of this race.
Yes, there's no question about it. What I think has hurt Goodyear very much is that they were out of motorsport, Grand Prix motor racing, for such a long time, and that gap has certainly been expensive for them, because it's simply not possible to keep up with development if you're not. And by the way, as I speak to you, Alan Jones, the present world champion, has just come into the pits in front of us now as we look at our screen at Pironi passing there. Alan Jones is having a chat with his designers and his staff. They're looking as if they want to change some rubber. There's enough people around there to eat the car, never mind work on it. And I don't think that you're going to see Alan Jones doing very much more. Patrick Head, the designer, the man in the blue coat there that you see leaning against the car right now, is trying to make a decision. They're going to put different rubber on. They're putting the full wet weather rubber on, and this is the intermediate tyre that they've been using this far. They're putting the big wet weather tyres on the back. They're putting new tyres, again of the intermediate pattern, on the front of the car. This is immediately below our commentary positions. I can see all this. Alan wiping off the muck and the rain, getting another piece of paper to try and dry off a visor that can so easily steam up and restrict vision. The rest of the team working hard. Wayne, and there is John Watson there, who's just recorded the fastest lap so far at 86.201 miles an hour. The Northern Ireland driver going like the clappers as Alan Jones leaves the pits with new rubber.
Well, is John Watson on the circuit and doing well as he's closing the gap on Villeneuve, whose engine has been sounding a bit rough the last few laps. We'll be watching it. As a matter of fact, there's Villeneuve, who's just ahead of Watson. We'll be back with CTV's live coverage of the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada in just a moment.
A Montreal day is a CJAD day, and it begins in the morning with George Vulcan.
We'll be here till...
There you see it. There's Gilles Villeneuve just in front now of John Watson. Villeneuve, we mentioned as we broke away that his engine had been sounding a bit rough. He's just coming by us right now, and he has got maybe 100 feet on Watson, and that is about all. Split second, and we are going to have a battle here for second place.
I suspect that he is having electrical problems with his engine. I should think it's the rain that's doing it. I should think wetness has got into one of the transistors or something to do with the ignition, because as he went past, it wasn't just a roughness, it was an electrical cutout, and I feel that our young man from Canada is in trouble. He's still, of course, staving off John Watson to a remarkable extent. Watson, of course, has to be very careful not to overdo it himself. So it's a question of Watson, just driving within his own talents, in the knowledge that he can hear the engine, of course, of Gilles Villeneuve. He can hear that engine miss, the chances are. A 19-second lead, incidentally, does Jacques Lafitte have over Gilles Villeneuve. So there is no immediate risk to the leader's position. But certainly Gilles Villeneuve must now be under pressure. I must say, of course, that if he is having an engine problem, it is not as critical on the rain as it would be in the dry. And incidentally, that's one part of the circuit where it's very obvious to you that John Watson is much faster than the Ferrari on, because, of course, he caught him up so dramatically. So it's now a cat and mice job. and we had a little report from out there that in fact our hero, our leader, had a little spin, got back on again, and it will remain to be seen what the gap is now between Jacques Lafitte and as he comes round the hairpin and heads towards the start-finishing line, we will get an indication, and he's lost a considerable amount of time, I dare say. We'll give you the gap in a moment. Our report is, and it's to be confirmed, I don't know, we'll have to wait and hear about that, but it seems that he had a little excursion, and that might have been costly for him. In fact, it's down to 11.02 seconds in our unofficial time here by Ron Rush, who of course is very accurate in most every condition.
Well, we've got a little drama out there. We seem to have lost Didier Pironi out on the circuit. We don't know where he is right now, but Didier Pironi has not passed us by. So Didier Pironi and the other Ferrari was doing very, very well and had found himself up around 4th or 5th spot, and challenging has suddenly disappeared. And so we'll have to watch for him as we've got Lafitte leading by 11 seconds over Villeneuve. Watson in 3rd place, but challenging Villeneuve. Alain Prost, then Piquet, and Daly now. Derek Daly has closed up to 6th spot. Now, he had a very late starting position. He qualified 20th for this race and is up to 6th place and driving very well in the March 811.
Very impressive as we see the top 6 on our picture there, and of course by the dropout of Pironi, it gives Nelson Piquet a little present back, because he's now back into 5th position, which gives him 2 points in the World Championship. Gilles Villeneuve still retains that slender lead over John Watson. Conditions outside, suddenly there's been a lightning in the sky, and we may get a little drying of the track, which can only help. In fact, it could assist to some small extent Nelson Piquet, as we see Gilles Villeneuve very tightly followed by John Watson from Northern Ireland, and we'll be back for more of the coverage of the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada in just a moment.
Advanced electronics in the Pentax ME Super makes it easy to become a super photographer. With fully automatic 3-color LED.
Very well at the beginning of the race, and then has dropped back and certainly has not done particularly well from that little spin. He's sorted himself out very well, kept his engine running and continues to go along. As there you see Nelson Piquet also getting past Marc Schurer. Nelson Piquet is now catching up everybody. He is, oh no, I beg your pardon, let's take a breath on that. That's Hector Rabaki, excuse me. Rather difficult under these rainy conditions to spot them, I will have to say.
Especially when they write a 5 just like a 6 on the car. But you're watching right now as Villeneuve comes through. That is Gilles Villeneuve. We had tried to track down car number 28, driven by Didier Pironi, as we look at the standings right now. And those standings reflect the back end of the grid. 43 laps, they say, to the end, which is not true, of course. We'll go the 200 miles here. Those are the back markers on the circuit right now. But here we're trying to keep track of what's going on. As you see Mansell in car number 12, then Villeneuve. Now we've had a bit of drop in front of the pits, and that, I think, again, is our friend Rabaki. Rabaki, who got out of shape. He's having an awfully rough time out there. That's twice now in the last couple of laps that he has made sideways excursions on the track.
Well, it is very slippery, that's all I can say. He's been in several times to change rubber to try and find a configuration suitable to himself and the car, but obviously, as we've just witnessed, he hasn't found that combination to be working particularly well. There's the leader, and that's your man. That's the Ligier being driven by Jacques Lafitte. Very talented driver who's been around for quite a long while now, showing considerable maturity in the way that he came through the field. He picked everybody off. He had plenty of time to do it. He knew that, and he certainly didn't get himself all sorted out too aggressively. That little shot that you saw there, of course, was Carlos Reutemann, who sadly is not doing at all well.
All right, down below right now, Barry Gill with the defending world champion.
Well, standing next to me is obviously a very, very disappointed world champion. Alan, you've won this race twice, but today you set off in the lead. We looked at who's going to happen. What went wrong?
It started to rain. While there was a dry line, I was perfect, but then once the rain got to over a certain depth on the track with the type of tyres I've got there with the smaller tread, as opposed to the larger tread, which doesn't disperse the water, I was rather a prophet of doom before the race. It's exactly as I was saying. If there was a dry line, the car was fantastic, but then once it started to rain really heavily and the water got over a certain depth on the circuit, I was history.
Well, I mean, you came in and did a little bit of a change. That obviously made no difference.
Well, I tried putting some different rear tyres on. Unfortunately, we can't put different front ones on because we're limited to the diameter of the tyre wheel we use. But that really didn't make that big of an improvement. So when I was in 103rd position, with a good chance of going into the fence, I thought, who needs it?
Yeah, well, Alan, sorry to see you go out this way. We thought you were going to get a hat trick, but it's nice to see you in one piece and drying off. Thanks for talking to us.
Okay, thank you.
103rd position. Well, he had fallen to dead last, picked it up a little bit, and may I say right now, as we watch Pironi walk back, he's parked his car way out on the circuit somewhere. May I say that we're going to have clear weather, and this track is going to dry up, Jackie, and that's going to change things, I think, quite considerably. Things are clearing up. We're almost seeing sun popping through the clouds now. As this track goes, and we're just halfway through the race, we could have a situation where this track becomes dry.
Yes, it certainly will change things, but what we were looking at right there, by the way, was Carlos Reutemann about to be lapped once again by our leader, Jacques Lafitte.
We'll return to CTV's live coverage of the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada in just a moment.
We had a choice.
Reutemann, even though he's lying in 17th position down, will not relinquish his lead in the World Championship. He will, I fear, wish to forget this Labatt Grand Prix of Canada. It's not been a happy day for him in these difficult conditions. Carlos, however, mature enough to realize that he has to keep on trucking, keep on going around this racetrack. You never know what can happen. And there you see Elio De Angelis, or is that Mansell? It's Nigel Mansell, who went straight on at that tricky little chicane that so many people have been missing rather than taking. Derek Daly has missed it a couple of times, and Jacques Lafitte there now going through very cleanly, one of the faster parts of the racetrack. Jacques Lafitte, our present leader, and dominating this race with a fairly easy margin right now, and he's coming up against a slower car. This is where, of course, you have to be extremely careful. He's now going to come up in one of the Alfa Romeos. That's the car of Bruno Giacomelli he's about to lap. And it will be important for him to be sure that Giacomelli has well and truly seen him in his mirror. Giacomelli, of course, in the meantime, will be shown a blue flag by the commissaires, by the marshals around this Île Notre-Dame circuit, to advise him that there is a car behind him. You may well even see the hand of Jacques Lafitte being raised as he gets up close behind him to try and tell the marshals, look, I'm closing up, wave that flag more vigorously, let Giacomelli know that I'm behind him, and please, Mr. Giacomelli, move over and let me through with the minimum amount of interruption. And of course it is important for him, because if he comes in contact with Giacomelli or any other car that he might be lapping, it could cost him the race.
Just trying to do some quick arithmetic based on the standings currently, which do show Lafitte leading Villeneuve in second place, Watson, Prost, and Piquet in third, fourth, and fifth, and then Daly. But just looking at the 9 points that Lafitte could pick up here, that would bring him up to 43 points total, and it would move him into third place in the overall standings, with Alain Prost, if he finishes fourth, moving into fourth spot. And Lafitte then would be in position with some brakes and so on, and a good race at Las Vegas to win the World Championship. But he'd need, of course, a lot of cooperation from Reutemann and Piquet, and a lot of uncooperativeness from their machinery.
Well, right now we're looking at a situation where, frankly, Bruno Giacomelli is not being particularly helpful to our leader. And right now he's passed a slower car that put up a tremendous plume of water there, as it may have spun down the racetrack as we were looking up there. But Bruno Giacomelli simply has been ignoring the blue flags. He must know that he is being lapped, that he is not in contention here, and I can't understand why he simply just doesn't move over and let Jacques Lafitte through. Jacques Lafitte's lead is not being threatened in any way. He's got plenty of cushion there, but still it's very irritating when you are leading a race to come up behind another car who's not paying attention. We'll have a look now and see how The flag system has been shown. In fact, it's Mario Andretti, not Bruno Giacomelli, and Mario is a very experienced driver. Has had many years on the racetracks of this world. In fact, has won the Indianapolis 500 twice now, if the legal battle holds up relating to this year's 500. He has won the Daytona 500, and he has also won the World Championship. At, I think, 41 years of age, or maybe even 42 now, I can't quite remember. One of the more mature gentlemen in the world of Grand Prix racing. The blue flag again being shown, and that is for Gilles Villeneuve and John Watson, who are coming up behind our drummer friend in the ATS car there, and Gilles looking for a place to pass. The superior power of the Ferrari showing itself, and he looks for a place to pass up the inside, coming into the hairpin. He does so. John Watson, is he going to be able to follow him through? John's lost a little bit of ground, accelerating hard on a completely wet part of the racetrack, but he also gets past, loses nothing on Gilles Villeneuve, and of course is within striking distance of the Ferrari.
Well, it's interesting to watch Villeneuve. He came by here about a lap ago, and his car sounded just awful. It was cutting in and out. It almost sounded like one cylinder was not running for him. But he still seems to have the power to handle Watson when he wants to. So it may be an in-and-out, intermittent kind of a situation for him. And by the way, we've got a bit of a race going on. Giacomelli is now closing up on Nelson Piquet, and that is a battle for 5th spot. Now, all of our standings are showing the Chaser is up there, but every lap chart we've seen in here is we've got 3 different ones going, show that Giacomelli is right there. Alain Prost has just turned in the fastest lap, so these drying conditions may be helping the Renault car quite considerably. Prost currently in 4th place behind Watson.
Well, unquestionably, the conditions are drying out, and therefore some of the cars are being allowed to perform just that little bit better. But certainly Bruno Giacomelli is closing up on Nelson Piquet, and of course John Watson is not letting Gilles Villeneuve get out of his sights. The business that you were speaking of with regards to the lack of power, with this rainy conditions and the lack of adhesion that they've got, they can't put all of the power they've got in any case onto the road, so any slight discrepancy of engine performance is not nearly as important right now in these conditions as it would normally be if it were dry and you were looking for every ounce of horsepower.
Well, there you see them then, and that is the battle for 2nd place with Villeneuve in 2nd, well behind Lafitte by about 10 seconds right now. Lafitte is taking it easy by all indications. He's got that comfortable lead, and he is holding on to it. By the way, it has not been much of a day for Australia, with Alan Jones, of course, retiring after falling as far back as last, but we certainly would like to say hello to our friends in Australia who are watching this telecast, along with 25 countries around the world. The folks at Channel 9, welcome to our telecast from Île Notre-Dame here in Montreal.
Well, I hear reports that Alan Jones may well be joining the Channel 9 folks down there to give commentary in some of the Grand Prix next year, because he won't be a competitor. He'll be a gentleman retired, such as myself, and therefore I'm sure they will enjoy the colourful words of Alan Jones in future Grand Prix. But not today. He's a man sitting comfortably in the dry right now in the pits, and I would dare say perhaps by now has gone off to get a shower and perhaps go back to his hotel. But there the battle still goes on for these two men. That there, by the way, is Mario Andretti, who in fact, John Watson, who is still following Gilles Villeneuve, still not seeing a way to get past the Canadian.
All right, we're looking right now, coming past us as we watch that end of the track, but coming by us here in the pit straight right now is the battle for 4th spot between Prost and car number 23, Bruno Giacomelli. There it is. That is not Prost, of course. That is Piquet. Piquet and Giacomelli. There they go. And look at that one. This could be a very good little battle here.
Well, Bruno Giacomelli is considered to be one of the fierier drivers in the business today. He, by the way, is running on Michelin tyres, and Nelson Piquet is running on Goodyear tyres. It'll be now a question to see if Giacomelli can stalk his prey and successfully get past Mr. Piquet. For Nelson, this is a very important situation. This could be the difference between 1 point and 2 points in the World Championship, and therefore could be tremendously important as they go to Las Vegas, as Giacomelli tries to accelerate a long past, and he does it. Bruno Giacomelli takes Nelson Piquet and robs him of one valuable point in the World Championship.
Could be a very, very big point in the World Championship. And look at Giacomelli getting a little out of shape down there at that end of the circuit. That was the culmination of a 10-lap hunt for that spot in the standings. Giacomelli has now moved up and has taken Piquet and 5th spot.
Well, the Alfa Romeo getting one of its more successful rides of this season. They've been having a lot of mechanical trouble, not being very competitive in qualifying and not being too successful in the races themselves. So therefore this would be a very welcome bit of success and a few championship points that would be hard earned and of course gratefully accepted in Milan.
Well, and Mario Andretti doing pretty well himself. He is in 9th place now, and Mario is doing certainly much better than he did last year when it was just a kind of a write-off year for him with the Lotus team. He had retired 8 times in the first 12 races last year. Didn't do very well at all, but in this one, Andretti now in 10th spot. And now we've got the pass taking place, of course, and you see Giacomelli in his spot in 5th place.
Well, there's still the light of the cloudy sky here, a little bit brighter. There has been no rain now for quite a long time. The track, the groove is drying out a tiny wee bit, but still the water around it is still tremendously evident. And of course there is a stiff breeze now, so we could see the changing conditions coming along. The drier it gets, no doubt, the better the advantage it is to John Watson. And there you see our leader passing some of the slower cars. That is Jacques Lafitte, the man who's leading it there well and truly with a over 7 second advantage there.
It's narrowing down, Jackie, and again we're wondering whether Lafitte is just kind of taking it easy or whether he is whether in fact he is having his problems. But Lafitte the leader with Villeneuve in 2nd place and Watson in 3rd place, a few seconds behind Villeneuve.
Well, Jacques Lafitte certainly showing himself well. The Cesare down there at the bottom of our screen is showing itself on the official leaderboard as in 6th
Jackie, I think we better ignore that because every lap chart, the one I'm using, the one you're using, shows, of course, that Giacomelli is there. So cancel the Cesaris, put Giacomelli in that spot.
Correct. I'm sure that is the case. Again, CTV giving our authority.
Absolutely. Now, if we can only make ourselves heard in the scoring tower.
We will eat our words if we are wrong, sir. But I'm sure that we're not. We have tremendous talent up here beside us here in the lap chart booth. We've got girls and boys working feverishly to give us the accuracy that we so badly need. And there is our man going through past Mr. Daly, who had missed the chicane on more than one occasion before. Derek Daly from Southern Ireland, a very talented young driver looking for great things in the future. Well,
Derek Daly currently is up in the 7th spot. He's come from a long way back and doing well. We'll return to CTV's live coverage of the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada in just a moment.
Jim Reed.
There you see John Watson, who has gone into 2nd place ahead of Gilles Villeneuve. That's Mario Andretti 3rd in your picture. He has been lapped by these two drivers. But there is John Watson now in 2nd place. He had been chasing Villeneuve for quite a long time and finally got by Villeneuve. It reminded me a great deal of a couple of years ago when Alan Jones chased Gilles Villeneuve in almost the same fashion with almost the same inevitability that you knew that eventually Watson was going to get through and take Villeneuve, especially considering the way Villeneuve's engine had been running.
Yeah, John has driven extremely well indeed. Very good calculated race, but we have to recognize undoubtedly that Gilles has had an engine misfire now for a good many laps. He's been battling against that. He's been trying his best to keep John Watson behind him, but quite frankly it just simply hasn't been possible. John Watson driving very, very well this season. The new McLaren come back to life. He won the British Grand Prix in Silverstone earlier this year, and he must be a happy man to have put that under his belt. And there's Gilles putting a little bit of extra power on there, the car going sideways, and of course just being able to catch it in the manner that he has grown famous for, his car control, his seat-of-the-pants driving, very high standard indeed. John Watson now having to find his way by some of the slower cars in this rather bad weather condition. There you see the car of Elio De Angelis. He's now stalking him. John has to find a way through him. And then after that, yet another car. No easy matter lapping cars in these weather conditions.
Jackie, the latest report unofficially we have is this race, if it goes to 2 hours, will end at 5:29 Eastern Time for 53 laps.
That's what it appears at the moment. That may well changing a little bit, so we'll have to stay on top of that. But I think if you all stay glued to your television set, you're still going to see some exciting racing here. Gilles Villeneuve is still having trouble, and he's going to have to hold on to that third place, which of course will be very important for him. And in the meantime, John Watson getting past, Derek Daly there, accelerating up towards, and there Gilles Villeneuve has spun, in fact. He's spun round, he's managed to keep the, and he's damaged the aerofoil, the front wing. He has damaged, he came in contact with another car there. I think it might have been the car of Mario Andretti, I'm not quite sure, but it certainly looked at that, and it's very heavily damaged. The wing is really out of line now. It will certainly affect the downforce. The front end of that car will not bite into the road surface nearly so well. He will experience something called understeer, which is push. That's to say, when you turn the steering wheel, say to go left, the car tends to go straight on instead of taking the corner, and he'll have to compensate for that by entering the corner just that little bit slower, and will undoubtedly affect his pace. So it will now remain to be seen whether Alain Prost can now start to catch Gilles Villeneuve. And of course then Villeneuve is going to be faced with the decision as to whether he comes into the pits to do anything about that wing, or whether because of the rainy conditions he can still keep going, because as I speak to you, the sky has darkened just a wee bit again, and we could have another shower of rain. Who knows?
Alain Prost, by the way, is 41 seconds behind Villeneuve, so it's a long distance, and if this race does in fact end in the next half hour, then you might be able to squeeze that third place in without making that pit stop. So a big decision coming up, I think, for not only Villeneuve, but also for the Ferrari pits.
Yes, I fear that he will not come into the pits. I would think he will keep going, because as long as he knows that that gap remains, he can just keep going solidly around the racetrack and manage to just keep that 41-second cushion going, or if he drops a little bit of that 41 seconds, it's going to be no great pain.
Well, Alain Prost himself has not been going that well in recent laps. That gap has been widening, so we'll try and get an interval next time Villeneuve comes past us to see just if it is being narrowed at all. But there you see Villeneuve, and you see that bent spoiler out in front of the car, and so he's got a problem.
Well, accidents do happen in motor racing, and there you just saw one go wrong, and that was exactly what did occur. And we are now back to our leader, Jacques Lafitte, and there is one of that is Rabacki. Hector Rabacki has pulled off the racetrack. He's been having numerous problems all day long. He's gone off on several occasions, spinning on, and 11.9 seconds between Jacques Lafitte and John Watson, which is fairly significant. We've just been given a time of the official end of the race as 5:39, by the way, as the official end. That's what we've been told in the meantime. And Suzanne Kane has come up from race administration to give us all the inside information that she can. She's the lady who runs this race. Nobody knows it, but that's the way it is. And we're certainly looking forward to the end of this race, no more than these drivers are, because conditions here at Île Notre-Dame, very dicey, very difficult. And there you see Jacques Lafitte driving around. By the way, interesting, he was not driving on the groove. He was driving on the wet part of the racetrack to keep his tire temperatures down there, so that the tire temperatures would keep cool. If he stays on the groove and it does dry out, his tires are going to get into trouble. They can overheat. So therefore this is just an interesting little thing that happened there. When there was no risk to him at all, he pulled over and got onto a wet part of the racetrack.
The gap, by the way, between third and fourth, Villeneuve to Prost, is 33 seconds, so it is narrowed down. We'll keep you abreast of that one as we watch, of course, the car of Jacques Lafitte. Lafitte in control of this race at this moment with a more than 10-second lead as he hits one of the puddles on the circuit. Lafitte driving at car number 26, the Talbot Matra. The Matra engine in this car now. They have gone away from the Ford and have revived the Matra engine. And so Lafitte continues to lead comfortably over Watson, with Villeneuve third, Prost fourth, and Nelson Piquet still shown in fifth spot. But he, by our lap charts, has dropped to sixth behind Giacomelli. We'll return to CTV's live coverage of the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada in just a moment.
We're taking you to the stars, up and away, halfway to Mars. top.
Hello, I'm Martha Howlett. This year there's some great new fall fashion ideas, but remember your best accessory is always a healthy, well-toned body. That's where I can help with morning exercise, so join us. We're back again this fall.
We're taking you to CFCF.
CFCF 12, Cable 11.
Hello, I'm Norm Perry. Join Gail Scott, Wally Watts, and Ronaldo, and myself each weekday morning for CTV's Canada AM.
On Monday, Canada AM will be coming to you from Ottawa with special coverage of the long-awaited Supreme Court decision on the Constitution.
That's Monday on Canada AM. Best way to start your day.
The Alan Thicke Show. Sure, we have music, comedy, and interviews. But there's also a good measure of the unpredictable thrown in, just for fun. The Alan Thicke Show, weekdays on ZTV.
Join Alan as he welcomes singer Ronnie Prophet, actress Randy Oakes, and actor Greg Morris tomorrow afternoon at 1.
The Family Feud. With the star of Family Feud, Richard Dawson.
It's the number one answer. You need 46 points for the money. Be the comeback of the year. Survey said.
Family Feud, weekdays at 4:30 on CFCF 12, Cable 11.
He just parked it against the tires out at the back end. The drummer for ABBA, sponsored by the ABBA rock group, this very popular Swedish industry in its own right. And what have we got down there, Jackie?
He's been led away by the marshals, who obviously want to care for his safety just in case another car comes in here and goes down the escape road. These tires there to slow a car's progress down, but there's the Borgood car there. He spun off, went right into the tires, went straight on that particular corner, and therefore has severely damaged the vehicle, certainly not allowing it to continue. That there was the car leading the race, Jacques Lafitte of France, in the Ligier, the Jetin Ligier. Torbo are involved in the sponsorship and ownership of this team now. Guy Ligier, who used to play rugby for France, is here today in the Île Notre-Dame at this Labatt Grand Prix of Canada. Jacques Lafitte, I would have to say, has dominated this race in a way, in the manner in which he came through the pack to begin with. Very convincingly picked off car after car and found himself in the lead, not at all by attrition, but by just sheer good judgment and fine driving.
Well, the motor racing in France now is practically a national industry. The Talbot company has been taken over by Peugeot recently. They, of course, very much involved with the Ligier team now. So the strength of the sport is slowly shifting. Certainly, it had been centered between England and Italy for a long time, and now the French are very, very deeply involved, not only from the talent on this track, but also on the sidelines, with, of course, the great development costs that have been poured into the development of the Renault. And now we see, is that Villeneuve?
It is. Gilles Villeneuve still with his wing cocked high in the air there after the coming together that he had, I believe, with Mario Andretti. I'm not quite sure. It was out of our picture at the time, but that's what's been reported to us. But Gilles Villeneuve now looking a slightly sorry front end, but wisely, in my opinion, continuing on without coming into the pits. If he were to come into the pits, frankly, it would just cost him considerably more time, and I don't feel as if it would be of sufficient benefit for him at this stage. He's still holding his position up, and that, of course, is in third position.
One thing, Jackie, the way that thing is cocked there, I guess one worry would be, will it come off?
That has to be the thought of the driver. If it does come off, it certainly would not touch Gilles, because the aerodynamics would lift it way up above the car, and if it were to come off, the only hazard would be to vehicles following, and of course perhaps the thought of one car hitting it while that piece of debris was on the track. Cars can't get around as easily in the rain. They're committed to a line, and when something goes wrong, they just can't deviate in the way that they might do in dry conditions. But of course, they can't move around much at the sort of speeds that they're traveling at in any case. So that's something that the marshals have to look out for. They have flag systems. They have a yellow flag if there is a potential hazard on the racetrack. It could mean that the track could be partially blocked. and these flag marshals would wave that very vigorously and therefore obviously warn the drivers coming behind. Flag marshals terribly important.
Also have a black flag, and if that becomes loose on the car, that flag says report to the pits and take it off or replace it.
Yes, exactly. If suddenly the officials felt that it was a potential hazard to other cars or to other parts of the racetrack with respect to debris, they would show them the black flag and bring them in.
So we're watching now the situation where Lafitte has got an 11-second lead on Watson as we watch again Gilles Villeneuve currently racing in third place. Would like to see himself up on the victory stand if he can here. He's never failed to pick up a point here at the Grand Prix of Canada since it's been held here at Île Notre-Dame. His very first race for Ferrari was at the Grand Prix of Canada when it was held at Mosport in 1977.
Well, of course, he's extremely talented, and when he went to Ferrari, he certainly escalated himself up into the ranks of the top 5 or 6 drivers in the world, and there he still holds that position. This year, being rather disappointed by the performance of his Ferrari car, and I think that the performance today is not really reflective of the motor car's let's say, advantage over any of the others in the field. I think it's been a tyre situation here that we've seen today, and the tyres have certainly, the lack of Goodyear's participation in the early part of the season, their development period was certainly hampered. They certainly haven't come out with a tyre as good for wet weather running as their opposition, Michelin. So therefore I think that we have to recognise that Gilles, who by the way was trying to adjust his mirror there, quite an interesting shot we had from our camera, he just tapped his mirror to get a little better visibility from behind. So the driver's always doing something. It's not a question of having a little nap out there. He's got to keep on top of the car all of the time.
Jackie, I've just put the clock on Villeneuve at last report, the 30-second differential. So he's maintaining that differential on Prost, the fourth-place driver. So we'll get a more accurate timing here in just a second. But he seems to be hanging on. He seems to be just maintaining that gap. But nobody seems to be passing him. That's interesting.
Well, because, as I say, in the rain, the adhesion that he may be losing from that front wing would not be as critical as it might be if it were a dry track.
26.33 seconds now is the differential, with about 30 minutes left now under the latest situation, which was that this race would end at 5:39 Eastern Time.
Well, he could certainly be caught in that time. It rather depends on what Alain Prost has left underneath his car, and if he has any problem that he might be experiencing, who knows. But in rain, of course, it also depends. If there was an extra wee shower of rain, that would change the picture once again, and it's certainly a changeable sky we have.
Well, Joe is, well, he's getting
he's pushing on.
He's pushing the car.
I tell you, he's not letting up. He is fully aware that he has been caught by Alain Prost, and he's therefore putting on that bit of pressure that you just saw. This is no Sunday afternoon drive. That's Alain Prost there, by the way, in the Renault. Young driver from France also, great glut of French drivers now. It certainly seems to be the language most spoken in the motor racing community. As we look down, by the way, from the pits, Nigel Mansell comes into the pits below our commentary position as we watch the progress of Alain Prost driving the Renault Elf from France. Nationalised industry is Renault, and also is Elf for that matter, as a wheel change seems to be in vogue. For front wheels are being changed in Mansell's car. It looks like they're going to leave the rear wheels. No, the rear wheels are also being changed, and there you see again Eddie Cheever in the Tyrrell, number 3, went straight on and had a little number at one of the chicanes.
Jackie, this is a name I guess we're going to hear for years to come. Mansell has impressed so many people down there as we see them working on his car. I think Barry Gill's down in that area as well. He impressed so many people at Monaco this year. I think that was the one that it was kind of a breakthrough race for him.
Yes, he certainly advised everybody of his presence. And again, on a road course such as this Île Notre-Dame is, which is a sort of dicey little stop-and-go racetrack in comparison to some of the high-speed ones. So therefore, he's showing that just driver talent can do a great deal.
All right. Well, we're watching the leader right now coming up on the back markers, and that is, of course, the car, the Talbot Ligier, driven by Jacques Lafitte. We'll return to CTV's live coverage of the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada in just a moment. There's Nigel Mansell, who just had a little foray into the infield and is back out again after spinning his way out there. We'll get a little more on that in just a moment, but down below is Barry Gill.
Well, that really is the most exciting story. We have Nigel Mansell coming to the pits with a puncture. Instead of going out on wets, his team took a gamble to put him on slicks because they felt the track was drying. Unfortunately, on that very first lap on the dry tyres, he spun, and because he's on the slicks, he can't get off the grass. So for once, the Lotus mechanics have made a gamble that hasn't worked, and that's really bad news and bad luck for Nigel Mansell. Back to you, Ron.
Lafitte, the leader, he has now got a 19-second lead on Watson, and Villeneuve is 47 seconds the leader, and look at that.
And there's a situation. Nigel Mansell simply did not see Alain Prost, and it has probably cost Alain Prost fourth place in this race. Nigel Mansell was coming there slowly around the racetrack, and Alain Prost tried to overtake him. Suddenly, I'm afraid they came together. He put on the brakes because of the wet conditions. He simply wasn't able to get around him. Alain Prost, a very upset, disappointed young man right now. He didn't really feel that it was his fault. Nigel Mansell, I'm sure, is very concerned about this because I'm sure he wasn't aware that this situation was occurring. Here you see it. He was on the right-hand side of the racetrack. Look, Prost tries to get around him, but Nigel Mansell closes the door on him. In the meantime, Prost, of course, thrashes into him. Nigel Mansell gets bounced into the barrier. The wing, of course, was already halfway off the car. There was something loose underneath the car also because of him being his off-course diversion there. And Alain Prost, a very dejected man, thought that, and I suppose rightly thought, that Nigel Mansell had seen him. Nigel Mansell was driving on the centre of the racetrack. He suddenly moved over onto the fast lane and, of course, came into contact with Prost. Now, this does change things considerably. It does help Nelson Piquet with regard to the World Championship in points because suddenly he has got an extra point because of Prost being dropped out of it. So this is significant in the World Championship.
Bruno Giacomelli, by the way, as we look at Gilles Villeneuve coming through, Bruno Giacomelli is now in the scoring. They've corrected that scoring flaw, and Giacomelli is now listed in fourth place ahead of Piquet. Of course, Lafitte, Watson, and Villeneuve, the order 1, 2, 3. Watch Villeneuve with that bent spoiler on the front, the wing, which, of course, was bent earlier. And he is now ahead of the car driven by Michel Alboreto. Alboreto listed in 14th place right now and 3 laps down. It's spread out pretty well with only 6 cars. The cars, I guess, that will make the points and pick up championship points. They're the only ones on the same lap. Prost now a lap down and will, of course, continue to drop to Angelis, Andretti, and Daly, and on we go downwards.
Well, of course, that was a very unfortunate incident. It just does show you that motor racing is dangerous. There could have been a lot more come of that. Looking at our leader right now, Jacques Lafitte, as he goes through. But the choice of tyres there had a lot to do, I'm afraid, with Nigel Mansell going off the racetrack initially and causing that aerofoil to be damaged and to be limping around the racetrack. Whether it was a Lotus decision or whether it was a Nigel Mansell decision, I'm not quite sure. Certainly, the Lotus engineers plugged their headset in to talk to Mansell in the car while he was stopping to have the punctured tyre replaced. And therefore that decision, I'm sure, was discussed when he did so. And there you see our standings with Jacques Lafitte, John Watson, Gilles Villeneuve, Bruno Giacomelli, Nelson Piquet picking up that extra point. And it shows to us here that De Cesare is now in 6th place, picking up 1 championship point. With it shows 20 laps to go to the end, or roughly about 20 minutes of driving, which would be, of course, a little less than the 20 laps.
Well, we're on the 51st, actually the 52nd lap is Lafitte and Watson have passed us here on the 52nd lap, along also with the car of Gilles Villeneuve, who just went by at this moment.
Well, it's follow my leader now, but it just shows you can't walk away from your television set because fairly spectacular things can happen, and that, of course, helped Gilles Villeneuve quite a lot there to get the pressure away from him with regards to the exit of Alain Prost. And I dare say there's a few words being said between these two drivers as they come back to the pits, and no doubt they will be comparing notes on how this incident could have occurred.
52 seconds, by the way, now between Villeneuve and Giacomelli, which is very comfortable in a situation, I think, where Villeneuve can baby his car a little bit now.
Oh yes, he shouldn't have any trouble now. Literally, he should be able to coast home without a great deal of trouble, but I don't know. You never know in motor racing until you get to the end of the race.
All right, you see Nelson Piquet there in car number 5. He is coming through there. He is in 5th place right now, and down below with a rather unfortunate young man with a little incident, Nigel Mansell. Here's Barry Gill.
Well, Nigel, you've had an exciting last 10 minutes. What on earth happened? We saw you come into the pits. What was the first problem?
The first problem was the car was bottoming very, very badly. Also, we had a slow puncture in the wet tyres, so rather than go and put another wet set on because we were out of it anyway, is that, we were all sort of hoping it might dry up, so we went out on slicks. But then coming around on the first lap slowly into the hairpin, all of a sudden someone came and ran me up the rear.
Well, that someone, I think, was Alan Prost, but you just couldn't see him, is that it?
Well, no, someone passed me, I was behind them on the left, and all of a sudden a big impact. I don't suppose Alan saw me.
Nigel, you said before this race began that it was going to be very hectic. Has it been more dangerous than you expected?
Well, the biggest problem for us is that our wet tyres are obviously nowhere near as good as the Michelin's. And therefore, as you can see by the way the race is going, the Michelin runners are just walking away with it.
Nigel, sorry you had a race. Thanks for talking to us. Glad you're in one piece despite all the excitement. Nigel Mansell, Ron.
Okay, thanks very much, Barry. Nigel Mansell, we'll hear from him in races to come, to be sure, as we're watching right now the car of Nelson Piquet, who had the pole in this race, but fallen to
De Cesare spun off there behind Piquet, and the leader got through quite clearly because he was just about to put a lap on all these guys. So right now, Nelson Piquet got off the hook because De Cesare was just about to pass him and put him back into 6th position. De Cesare came alongside. He ran over the curb. He ran into Nelson Piquet ever so slightly, but lost control of the car. The blue car behind is the leader, and that could have been potentially a hazard to him, because that whole thing could have been a disaster for our leader, Jacques Lafitte, who we see second in our position, now behind Nelson Piquet, who he is about to lap.
Well, Piquet is the 5th car, so there will only be 4 on the same lap. We'll return to CTV's live coverage of the Labatt Grand Prix in just a minute.
He rose from obscurity to the threshold.
That's Carlos Reutemann, the current championship leader, and right behind him is the fellow who's leading this race, and they're about to lap Reutemann right now. Reutemann currently in 11th place, and 2 laps, about to go 3 laps down.
Yes, very unusual sight to see the World Championship leader being so convincingly stopped and passed, as you will no doubt see, within a very short distance. Obviously, Jacques Lafitte doing it with great care and attention. No point in exposing himself to a potential danger. And there he goes. He slips past Carlos Reutemann, I'm sure letting him through with relative ease there. Obviously not causing him any great inconvenience. It certainly isn't going to change the situation. There we see our leaderboard. Jacques Lafitte, John Watson from Northern Ireland 2nd, Gilles Villeneuve 3rd, Giacomelli 4th, Nelson Piquet 5th, and Elio De Angelis now taking up 6th position after the other Italian, De Cesare, had his moment in contact with Nelson Piquet. So it's been a rainy race, the entire distance being run, of course, on the wet. If you've just joined us in our coverage of this, the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada, it's a... Oh, and look at that wing. Gilles Villeneuve's in real trouble. Gilles Villeneuve's front wing has gone right up in front of him now. I am sure it has to be black flag. There is no way that they will allow Gilles Villeneuve to continue around this racetrack. I think what you'll find is that he will go as far as the pits, come into the pits, have it immediately cut off by the Ferrari engineers. No doubt some of them might be watching our telecast here, but Gilles' visibility now is almost nil, as you can imagine. That thing is only a matter of, I would say, 2 or 3 feet from his line of vision, and so therefore he's driving blind to a very large extent. I'm sure if he does go round one more time, he will be black flagged. If I were he now, I would make no attempt to do an extra lap. We have no indication as to when this checkered flag will come down. This is why everything is very much on tender hooks here. He's still driving as hard as he can around here. Now, it remains to be seen whether this thing flies off on its own or whether it will have to be cut off, and he's having trouble getting it stopped for the hairpin. He's almost putting it sideways. Great car control by Gilles. Now, what's he going to do? My God, he's going to continue.
I can't believe it. He's got 50 seconds on the next car, and he could have pulled in, had it cut away, and still been out on the track again. We've got 11 minutes to the finish, Jackie. That's the report we have. 11 minutes to the finish.
Then I fear he is definitely going to be black flagged. Now, this is no detriment to him. If he is black flagged, he will still have to come into the pits. So therefore it was either a question of choice or in fact insistence by the officials. The only risk is that could go underneath his front wheel, therefore either cause an immediate damage to his tire by cutting it and therefore potentially an accident, bending the front suspension while doing so. You also saw him clipping the curb there unnecessarily because, of course, he wasn't getting good visibility. He couldn't see the racetrack as he would normally do, and, of course, a lot of it is guesswork when it comes to lining a car up for a corner in advance if you can't see the apex of the corner. So I can see now that the officials will certainly be in discussion as to what is going to happen. And as I look outside, the rain is beginning to fall again. The umbrellas have gone up all around the racetrack here. I see spots of rain in our commentary position, the window here, as this is a very critical part of the race for the Canadian. Oh my goodness, Gilles Villeneuve is really in trouble with that.
Well, I can't believe they haven't black flagged him already, Jackie.
Well, keep in mind, Ron, that they hadn't seen that until he passed. We're getting the privilege of watching this on television. The officials may not have that privilege. They are observers who have to keep their eye on the racetrack, not on television screens, because, of course, they have to see the performance of all of the cars, and they will only have seen that car pass their position once. It now remains to be seen whether they take this black flag out for him. Fairly big decision for Canadian organisers when it's a Canadian driver, but of course safety, and it's fallen off. It went under his car. He's gone sideways. He's managed to collect it again through incredible car control. The aerofoil has come off. It's happened ironically right in front of the pits. He was not given the black flag in any case. He now can continue on his merry way with little or no aerodynamic help. Now let's watch this in slow motion here. As he comes round there, suddenly you will see the wings part company. As we see it, it's slowing down here. He brakes, the nose of the car will go down, and when the nose went down, suddenly the wing came off. It looked like the wing went definitely underneath. Part of the wing went underneath the rear left-hand tyre. It will now remain to be seen whether that tyre has been in any way punctured. And it's done something to the rear end as well, I fear. Let's have a look at his car. No, he seems to be still in order. He will be now looking at his rear view mirror to see if there is any vision. Some of the mirrors are still focused on the tyres, but with all of the spray, he will not be able to see that as he might normally.
Mario Andretti will probably pass him. He's right behind. Of course, the handling characteristics have changed completely right now, that car, but he looks like he is in comfortable shape now to go for home. There's the leader. That's Jacques Lafitte, and we'll be returning to CTV's live coverage of the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada in just a moment. Now 5 minutes remaining in the race. 5 minutes left in the race. It is Lafitte, then Watson, and then Villeneuve. Villeneuve currently holding a 1-4 lead. At least he's currently, holding a considerable lead over Giacomelli, as Giacomelli has dropped down a lap to Villeneuve.
Well, that's a break for Gilles Villeneuve, rather. And here we can see the interval between Jacques Lafitte and John Watson. I hope that isn't John Watson. I think that's the car, the Alfa Romeo. So the blue car that just went out of the picture is that of the leader, and the red and white car coming into our picture now is the car in second position. John Watson is certainly within striking distance, and if he were to have a real charge at Jacques Lafitte now, it could well be very tricky. It's showing in our timing here about 9.9 seconds of difference between these two cars, but it looks to me as if it may even be closer than that as they passed our position here in our commentary position. 9 seconds they tell us now, so therefore John Watson is certainly carving it down. But keep in mind that Jacques Lafitte is being, of course, told this by his crew and his pits, and therefore they're in a position to keep him informed.
All right, Lafitte leading by just under 10 seconds. Villeneuve in third place. And as Lafitte now goes through, Lafitte, of course, looking for his first win at the Grand Prix of Canada. And for Lafitte this year, this would be Another win for him. He won at Austria as well this year. So this will be a second victory for Jacques Lafitte in the Talbot Ligier Matra engine, Jackie, and that is a return of a name that is well known to you as well as others.
Well, I won my first world championship with Matra. They're a great company. They've just been nationalized by Mr. Mitterrand. They're producers of missiles, ground-to-air missiles. They're producers of satellites for France. They are arms producers. They are telecommunication people. They are very talented, and the name of Matra, of course, is in the name of the engine.
We are going to have to watch the timing stand now. There's less than 3 minutes remaining in this race, according to our timing. Now, I think perhaps on this lap, Lafitte, who's coming around to the pit area, here he is on the, coming around now, may get the signal that he is on his last lap. So we'll watch the scoring now just to see what they are going to do from the scoring tower. Will this be his last lap or not?
I see no finger being raised to him. Generally, there was normally one finger shown, just a pointed finger to say 1 lap to go, but they have not yet given him that. He no doubt will be wanting to see it with all his heart. He doesn't want to have to press any harder because John Watson is certainly closing the gap on him and will certainly keep the pressure on. Watson, a driver of considerable experience, the kind of man that I would imagine that Jacques Lafitte would rather not have on his tail at this time, but the cushion is still there. He still has a fairly comfortable margin.
Jackie, I remember that 1971 race at Mosport, and I'm trying to remember whether they gave you any warning that the race was over or whether they just dropped the flag on you. I'm just wondering whether suddenly he'll get the flag and that will be the end of the race.
Well, I just got the flag. They didn't give me any warning at all. It was just a question of suddenly coming round on one occasion and certainly getting this checkered flag. So therefore, who knows? It may still be given to him the next time we see him. It's a 2-hour race, if we may remind you, because the difference was, and you see him again lapping Alboreto in the number 4 car, the Tyrrell car. And Jacques Lafitte goes on his merry way, choosing his moment very carefully to pass him. It would be foolishness, of course, to put his nose into the treacherous moment and therefore perhaps not be seen by the slower car and, of course, lose his valuable lead. 9 points in his World Championship and, of course, above all, a victory in this Labatt Grand Prix of Canada.
Well, the tires, the Michelin tires, have helped Lafitte as they have helped all of the drivers at the top of the standings in this one. The rain, after Lafitte had qualified in 10th position, Lafitte now is in the lead and well out in front. So it is Lafitte who is now moving right into the championship picture. With this victory and the fact that Piquet, we assume, will finish in 5th place, the standings would read like this. Reutemann with no points here would have 49 points. Last lap. We're on the last lap, Jackie. We've officially got the word that we are on the last lap.
Well, I think Jacques Lafitte now must drive this lap very cautiously, not getting himself into potentially a problem. Of course, he is experienced. He's not likely to make a problem for himself, but let's be honest, who knows when it comes to slippery conditions such as this. His concentration sharpened up to its height so that there is no chance of having a lapse, even though you're so close to the end of a race. It's very simple to put your mind onto other things. So therefore, Jacques Lafitte driving round there. He's now reached the furthest end of the racetrack, and he's now heading towards home.
Well, Jacques Lafitte, the driver for the Talbot Ligier team, Lafitte, who last year won at Germany as well, has done well. He has not been really in the championship standings. It's an interesting year because he's been up in the standings but never really in contention for a championship, and suddenly he's thrust himself right into that spot. He'll be only 6 points behind Reutemann going into the final race of the year. It'll be Reutemann with 49, Piquet, if he finishes 5th, and it looks like he will, with 48, then Lafitte with 43, and Alain Prost, who will not get a point here, with 37. By the way, Watson will be in 5th spot with 27 for his 2nd place finish, and Villeneuve will be in 6th place with 24.
So Alan Jones, the departing world champion and the retiring driver, unfortunately has lost all chance of finishing off with his world championship. So here Jacques Lafitte now comes down to the hairpin bend, which will probably be his last time around in this year of the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada. We're looking towards the finish flag here. Has the man got it in his hand or has he not? And he goes round there.
There it is. The championship goes to Jacques Lafitte. He has won the 20th edition of the Grand Prix of Canada. Jacques Lafitte of Poigny, France, the 37-year-old driver who was born in Paris, has driven for this Ligier Talbot team for a number of years now. And he has won the Grand Prix of Canada. And now we're watching for John Watson, who will be coming across the line. There he is. Watson is in, and Gilles Villeneuve will be coming across the line as well. Villeneuve, as you see, John Watson right there. Villeneuve on his way as well to a third-place finish. It'll be interesting to see Villeneuve, who, as we watch Lafitte, making his way around the victory lap here at Île Notre-Dame on a day to test the mettle of any driver. There he is, Jacques Lafitte, the winner for the second time this year. He won in Austria. The last two races he could not complete, although he qualified 6th and 4th in the last two races. The car has been very competitive, but he just failed to finish. So there you see the 1 and 2 finishers. That is Lafitte and Watson directly behind him. Villeneuve will finish in third place. Giacomelli, an excellent drive for Bruno Giacomelli as he finishes in fourth spot, and Nelson Piquet will get 2 points for his fifth place finish. Elio De Angelis, the Italian driver, in sixth place. There's Gilles Villeneuve. Villeneuve in 4 races in the 4-year history of Île Notre-Dame has a win, a second, a fifth, and a third. So 3 times in the 4 years here he will make his appearance on the victory stand. Of course, in the victory stand involving the top 3 finishers. So Villeneuve crossing the start-finish line. There you see number 1 and number 2. Problems, of course, for Lafitte this year have been just finishing a race, as he has retired 5 times in the 14 races this year, including the last 2 races. So we'll bring them home here. The 2 top cars, Lafitte along with Watson, Villeneuve in third place. We'll return to CTV's live coverage of the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada in just a moment.
Extra, extra. It's time to make the big switch to Steinberg. Here's why.
I have tried others, and I find that I can get the best for my money here.
We've switched to Steinberg's.
They are going through up there is that little exercise known as finding out how high your car is. 6 centimeters you must be. They're measuring that. It hasn't been 6 centimeters since he started the race, but he's now put the hydraulics on and lifted the car back up to the legitimate height. And now the car is going back to the position in the pits, and of course he'll be joining everybody else up on the victory stand. And there is the final order of finish. The ones who will draw the points, 9 points to Jacques Lafitte. Watson will be in second place. He'll pick up 6 points, 4 points to Gilles Villeneuve, and then Giacomelli, Piquet, and De Angelis in that order will get 3, 2, and 1 respectively. They wind up a lap down, so that's the kind of conditions as those Michelin tires did a wonderful job for those top 3 finishers. Lafitte, of course, John Watson of Great Britain, actually from Northern Ireland, and Canadian Gilles Villeneuve, 2 Italians in the standings as well. So it's quite a day for the French Ligier team, the Talbot Ligier JS17 Matra-powered car. The most recent victory for them prior to here was, of course, the Austrian Grand Prix. And he, of course, now has come. There's Gilles Villeneuve making his way through the mob scene here to get to the tower and the presentation ceremonies. Jackie Stewart is out there, and he will be joining out there as there's John Watson on the victory stand. There's Jackie as well. Jackie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm standing here with a lonely John Watson at the moment. He's standing up here, and John, a difficult race.
I think it's the worst race I've ever had to drive. The conditions, particularly at the start, Jackie, were so bad. Literally, I thought they had to stop the race at some point, I thought. I was coming around every lap hoping to see the red flag being waved to come in and wait until the conditions improved a little bit. It was just so bad.
Was it flooding or was it visibility, John?
There was a little bit of flooding, but mainly visibility, and it's a small track, and of course the cars tend to get together a lot, and you could see nothing, literally see nothing.
Well, a young man coming up here now, Jacques Lafitte. We're standing with Jacques here. Jacques, the French flag's giving us a lot of trouble. You must be pretty happy. Now, I think they're all waiting for you here. They're waiting for the second man to come up here in the full roster.
He's here, Jackie.
I know he's here, but there's another one missing. We don't know where he is. Who's third? He's still got to come up here. Yes, but Gilles on his way. can we grab a quick word? And taking the plaudits of the crowd there, as you can see, Ron, is Jacques Lafitte, very happy man, waiting for Gilles Villeneuve to come up.
Well, Jackie, he's moved right into the standings, of course, now. We've got a tremendous race in the final race of the 1981 Grand Prix season. Lafitte now with 43 points and just 6 points behind Reutemann. Piquet, with his 5th place finish, has now moved just 1 point behind Reutemann.